There's a powerful saying within the disabled community, nothing for us without us. My guest today, Jenna Udenberg, embodies that spirit through her advocacy, community service, and the incredible work she's doing with her nonprofit. Jenna has used a wheelchair since childhood, but that has never held her back from seeking out adventure. With the help of her real mobility Firefly, she's out on the trails, discovering new paths, and living life to the fullest. Get ready for an inspiring journey with the unstoppable Jenna Udenberg. Welcome to Journey with Jake. This is a podcast about adventure and how through our adventures we can overcome the challenges of life that come our way. While I expect you will learn some things about different adventures, this show will entertain you. Each episode will feature a different guest or guests as they share experiences and stories from the different adventures they have been on. Not only will you be entertained, but you will also hear the failures and trials each guest faces and what they have done or are doing to overcome the hardships that come their way. My goal is to take each of us on a journey through the experiences of my guests with the hope that you'll be entertained and inspired to overcome your day-to-day challenges. After all, it's not all about the destination as it is about the journey. And welcome to Journey with Jake. I'm your host, Jake Bushman, and I'm excited to bring you another fantastic conversation. Today, I had the pleasure of speaking with Jenna Udenberg. Jenna has been in a wheelchair for most of her life, but that hasn't stopped her from living adventurously and being a powerful advocate for the disabled community. It was truly an honor to speak with her. Before we dive into that conversation, just a few quick reminders. Journey with Jake is now on YouTube. While podcasts are usually an audio experience, if you'd like to see me and my guests as we chat, head over to YouTube and search for Journey with Jake podcast. Be sure to subscribe to the channel and hit that like button. I'd also love to connect with you on Instagram. You can find me at Journey with Jake podcast. Leave a comment, send me a DM, or give me a follow to check out clips from the show and see what's going on in my world. And one more thing, Journey with Jake is proud to be part of the Podmatch Podcast Network. If you're looking for other great shows to check out, visit podmatch.com/network. Now back to Jenna. She may be in a wheelchair, but that doesn't stop her from being active in her community and exploring the world around her. If you enjoy this episode, you'll definitely want to check out episode 30 with Sean Delaney, who shares his own adventures while managing life with kidney failure. All right, let's jump into my conversation with Jenna Udenberg. All right, I have Jenna Udenberg on the call with me today. Jenna, welcome to Journey with Jake.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Jake.
Yeah, this is fun. I was telling you earlier, today, kind of a grind, just a day. But this is what I love. The fact that I get to sit back, talk to somebody who likes to be adventurous, somebody who has a story to share. And I love that. That's what I love doing this podcast, because I get to hear from people like you. So I'm excited to hear your story. Before we dive into kind of what you got going on, background information, kind of where are you from, where you grew up, that sort of thing, if you don't mind.
Yeah, great. I am from Two Harbors, Minnesota, so on the beautiful north shore of Lake Superior. Born and raised, went to university in Duluth and got a double degree in music education, both vocal and instrumental. And then went back to a different local college for my master's of education with tech integration. Did the music teaching gig for about 19 years. And then the pandemic hit. So now I'm on a disability retirement, and that's been an interesting journey. During that time, I was a 2020 Bush Fellow. That was exactly the great timing of big life pivots. And so now I'm an accessibility educator, disability advocate, activist. I started a nonprofit called Above and Beyond with You, became a published author, write a bi-weekly column for Lake County Press, which is a local newspaper in the area. And also during the pandemic and my Bush Fellowship, I fell in love with using a real mobility Firefly, which is most of my adventures come from. So lots to share with you.
And part of me, I'm like, I don't even know what she's talking about here with half of this stuff. The Firefly, so we're gonna get into all that. You
Right.
talked about the Bush program that you did, Bush Fellowship. How do you say it? What's the correct way?
Yep, Bush Fellowship.
Bush Fellowship. What is that exactly? What is a Bush Fellowship?
So it is for leaders in Minnesota, North Dakota, South Dakota, and the 23 tribal nations in those geographical areas. And so they invest in 26 human beings every year. And it's really just a way of developing your own leadership style, whether it's that you're trying to get a pre-prescribed like certification or going for a bachelor's or master's or doctorate. It's a way of you investing in yourself. So there's a lot of it that's about your self-reflection, your self-care, your soul care, however you want to use it. You can also use it as like something that you prescribe for yourself, which is the way that I went. And really, the sky's the limit. Like, you can use it to take a sabbatical. So if you want to use that to pay your bills and take some time off of work and like invest in yourself, take care of burnout, take care of medical stuff that's inhibiting you from being the leader that you can be, it's just amazing. And as you can imagine, it's highly sought after. When I did it in 2020, it was $50,000 a year for up to 2 years. And now I know they've increased that amount, and they've also decreased the different levels that you have to go through for the application process. But I
Wow.
want to say they have like 700 to 1,000 people apply every year. And so once you're a fellow, you're always a fellow. It was an amazing opportunity. It got me through the pandemic and huge life pivoting changes. But even just going on their website, even if you're not from those geographic regions, just going to their website, it's bushfoundation.org, and then just look for the Bush Fellowship. Just answering for yourself those application questions is an amazing tool in itself to see where you're at, where you want to go. Are you dreaming about things? And their tagline is think bigger, think differently. So it really makes you like get out of your everyday mundane grind of Mondays, because we're recording on a Monday, right? And be like, whatever day of the week it is, whatever season of life I'm in, where am I at? Where am I struggling? Where can I be doing better? And where can I focus and refocus these energies and priorities on?
Wow. Amazing. Yeah, I'm curious to see what some of those questions are, what the application process is like. Just
Yeah.
like you said, to kind of bring me out of my own shell sometimes. I mean, that might be interesting just to kind of get a feel for it.
Yeah, absolutely. And then that led to me becoming a 2025 Shannon Institute leader. And so that one is actually open for the whole nation. So you should check that one out too. That one you pay for instead of being invested in. But still, so far, I've had the retreat and heading into our first virtual retreat this coming weekend. But
Wow.
that in itself has been amazing to get together with other leaders and similar journeys and finding your people, finding your support
Yeah.
systems.
That's awesome. Finding your people, finding your support system. Grew up in Minnesota. Parents, siblings. What do you got going on there?
Yeah, both my parents are still alive. They're in their early 80s. I have three older siblings, and older by a lot. My brother's 16 years older, and then I have two sisters, 15 and 12 years older.
Wow.
So they
Okay.
always love to tell me that, I always say that I was the oopsie. And they're always like, no, you were the planned one. And I'm like, I'm sure it's somewhere in between those two, potentially. But yeah, so it was great, but it was different growing up because as, I was 3 when the two oldest graduated from high school, and then I was 7 when
Wow.
the next one graduated. So in some ways, yes, I have three older siblings. In some ways, I was kind of a lonely petunia, kind of an only child. And then you add my disability at age 7, or my diagnosis at 7, and in a wheelchair at age 8, and that also just changed the dynamics of life.
For sure. And let's dive into that a little bit, your disability and kind of what went on, because you and I talking here, can't tell anything's going on with you, can't see the wheelchair, so hey, everything looks fine. But I know earlier you kind of mentioned, about accessibility and things like that. What's the diagnosis? What happened? Kind of give me the scoop.
Yeah. So short Reader Digest version is I was 7 years old, getting ready for school one morning, hanging out in the lovely goldenrod casted bathtub because the late 80s you still had the retro of the 70s, and was playing in the bubbles, and I'm sure I was screwing around, and all of a sudden my one knee floated to the top of the bubbles, and it was like bigger than the size of a softball. And then I let my other knee float up, and that was like a typical little girl, tennis ball or smaller size. And what does any 7-year-old girl do? You scream for your mommy. And so from there, I went to a doctor, and the first doctor said, oh, you probably have water on the knee. And my dad, who did volunteer ambulance stuff, was like, my 7-year-old daughter is not an athlete, didn't have a big, you know, injury or anything like that. So then we got a second opinion in our small rural town, and thankfully we had two different doctors, right, being small and rural. And he took one look at me and he said, I think she has juvenile rheumatoid arthritis. So we're going to send her to Duluth. And so I saw a rheumatologist in Duluth, and he said, well, I can't officially diagnose you because that's when Lyme disease was new on the scene, which is a tick-borne disease. So I had to go down to Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota, and they had to run me through all of the not fun tests that a little girl could imagine. And seeing your dad kind of get hot and bothered and standing toe to toe with a radiologist who was like, you're going to drink that barium and you're going to like it, and you're putting me behind schedule and you need to do this thing and I don't care if you like it or not. And then my dad stepped in and was like, you will not talk to my daughter that way or you will be drinking this barium. So shout out to my dad, love my dad. He would not like me telling that story just because, but for all the dad bears out there, like, keep doing you, keep protecting your kids. Yeah, and then it was hard because, like, for those that have been in the medical world, let alone at Rochester and other medical centers, it was hard as a little 7-year-old. Like, they're using weird medical jargon and words and talking about me, not with me. And then a lot of them, English was their second language. So then also trying to get through the thick accents and like, I don't even know what you're saying, let alone, like I said, those big medical words.
Sure.
But specialist after specialist, they just kept giving me stickers and lollipops. So, hey, what the heck? But then trying to read the room of like, wow, mom and dad are super sad and I don't know what's going on. I just knew I was in pain. I knew something wasn't right.
So your knee, you said your knee was big. Like, you noticed in the bath, oh man, my knee's like big. At that point too, were you like not able to walk on it? Like what was kind of the situation there?
I don't remember a ton. Like the bathtub is the most vivid long-term memory for me. But it was hot, it was in pain, it was inflamed. I'm sure I was walking with a limp because I can't imagine a knee almost twice the size. And so, yeah, and my disease, as a kid, you don't know any different. But according to the medical world, my disease progressed very rapidly because within a year of being diagnosed, I was using a rental wheelchair, a manual wheelchair.
What was the official diagnosis then from Mayo Clinic?
At that time, it was juvenile rheumatoid arthritis.
Okay, just juvenile rheumatoid arthritis. Okay.
Yeah. But throughout my journey, it wasn't until about 2018 when I was back down at Mayo for some other medical stuff. They finally came out and said, well, technically now we call it juvenile idiopathic arthritis because it never followed the disease pattern of like the older people getting rheumatoid arthritis. And I'm like, well, duh, I could have told you that from my young age because it was like, but the medical book says A plus B equals C. And my body's like Q times the square root of R times the
Totally,
T.
totally different.
Yeah, and they just be like, Jenna, we just don't understand. We gave you this, it should be doing that. And it's just like, so then it was like, number one, you have, all your peers. And I had great friends and I had great classmates and all the things, but there were still bullies. There were still people that just didn't get it, right? So I was always like, that outsider in a lot of spaces. And then you would go to medical and I'm like, oh, these are my people. And then they'd be like, you're odd and unique and different. And what? So I'm like, where do I fit? Like, this is crazy.
Yeah. So there you are as a 7, 8-year-old and now you're in a wheelchair.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, 7, 8-year-olds usually like to be active, like to be moving around. Do you remember what that was like being confined to a wheelchair that early on?
Not really, but growing up, I was a tomboy. So I was, out fishing with my dad and brother and grandpa and older neighbor and, using the snowmobile out ice fishing, you have to be a good northern Minnesotan. Come on. Bird hunting with dad, going up to the shack. I never went deer hunting, but enough to hang out at the shack and, understand some of those life things up here. And they still were able to get me in and out for, quite a while, but then the pain just took over and the lack of mobility and just the rigmarole of all the work, right? So I became way more of a person that was stuck inside and, for a while was stuck in bed. When I was 15, I went through a depression and had a suicide plan of like, I'm just done with this. And my plan was to, keep some of my medications and try to overdose or try to throw myself down 2 flights of stairs because we had a split level entry house. In my suicidal ideation, I was like, I'll just go down the stairs. I will log roll to get to my dad's gun cabinet. I will somehow, Spider-Man up to the top of the cabinet to get the key to that. Like, none of it in the logical world makes any sense, but when you're in those spaces, it doesn't matter. You don't think logically, at least for in my story. But, then I just said, I just cried out and said no, because I know that I'm created for a bigger purpose. And I know that there's something else in life to do and to be. And this is just a really crappy time of life. And at some point, the pain will go away, mobility will return. Life will have, better thriving, better whatever word you want to put to it. And that's where my faith became a huge part of who I am and how I got through things and how I overcome things and push around things. I mean, I don't overcome my disability. There's no such thing as that. But I thrive with, I live with, and it's a part of me. So you can't separate Jenna Udenberg disabled from Jenna Udenberg, all the other labels. Like, it is me. I am my chair is me, but I'm not defined by other people's interpretation of that. So I'm not bound to a chair. I'm not stuck in a chair. Like, my chair gives me freedom. I get to do all these amazing things. And then you strap the real mobility on me, and I'm like, it's a third wheel electric attachment. Yeah, love going to Itasca State Park. I figured out there how to like push myself and then stay in coast mode, and I got it up to like 15 to 16 miles per hour of just coasting on paved trail and
Nice.
just being safe, of course, if real mobility is listening, but to just experience that. Like, I figured out how to yodel because it was really fun to go down some of those big twisty hills, like, and be in creation and nature again, and have the big towering pines over you. And I remember going up to an inland lake with a new to me friend at the time, and we just like went up this little ramp to this little kind of embankment type of a thing. You're still up in the trees on a bank looking over a smaller lake. And I was like, wow, I haven't smelt pine like this in like forever. And she just looked at me like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, but you get to walk on all the trails and you can go take a walk in the woods and you can go do all these adventurous things. I can't unless somebody makes something accessible. So, like,
Right.
those were like, senses all the way back to my childhood of like, I used to climb trees like that or swing in trees like that. Or so, yeah.
Wow. I want to go back to that time then when you were 15 and you're struggling
Yeah.
and you're inside a lot and you're depressed, but you
Yeah.
said you got over it. What do you think it was? How do you get over that? Because I like to ask people that question because I know when you're in the middle of those battles and it's tough, it's hard to see how to get past it when you're in it.
Yeah.
For you, and you talked about your faith a little bit. What was it for you that really pulled you out of it?
Yeah. So definitely my faith. And then I'm trying not to tell someone else's story, if that makes sense. So that's why I'm kind of dancing around words. But a person close to me had a house fire while I was in that time of life. And I knew that I needed to find that person and be there for them. And so that was really the impetus of like, I need to suck it up. And yes, pain is going to suck, but I'm used to pain. And it's important for me to get back to my regular life so I can be in connection with this person and keep tabs on them as their whole life was, just uprooted. And then for me too, my suicide depression time was around the Oklahoma City bombing time. So like it was like literally the day after I just finally cried out and found my faith. I was like, wow, okay, there are bigger things happening in life. And it doesn't discount the crap that I was going through. It doesn't
For sure.
discount all of the different types of pain and isolation and hurt and whatever. But those are the three big pivot points that got me through that. And then there's different times of, I don't want to say minimal depression because depression's never minimal, but wasn't as serious as that time of life. But usually medically induced, usually isolation related. And usually it's always been, your chosen family, right? Those friendships, those ride or die friends, those people that are like, I don't give a crap that you don't answer my phone. I'm going to come knock on your door. And you don't have to be the hostess with the mostess. We're just going to sit. I will just do life with you. You don't entertain me. We don't have to do anything, but we're just living life together. So finding those people, investing in those relationships, and doing the things you need to do is really where it's at.
Wow. I love that. Yeah, I think, having people in your life who affect you and mean so much to you that are just there to be with you. They don't, there's no other reason for it, just to be there with you. I love that. And I love the fact that you found someone to serve. I think that it was a big thing. And I know that because it's struggling when you're going through things. It's just like you can't see out of it. And then, yeah, maybe you have to help somebody, or maybe, people have things worse. Someone somewhere has something going on worse, for sure. But it's hard to see that when you're in the middle of it. So I appreciate you sharing that. And I'm glad you had that faith and, you know, you pushed on, because you've done a lot since then. You get out there and you're adventurous. You talked about what did you call it? The remote,
Oh,
whatever.
the real mobility Firefly.
Real mobility. I
Yeah.
got to write this down. Real mobility. And I want to talk about that in a minute. Before we
Yeah.
dive into all that, what is it about music? How did you get into music?
So my two older sisters, and my brother, the outdoorsman, had no time for music. He like tried football for a week and went, it interferes with hunting, I'm out. So yeah, he was definitely not a musical kind of guy. My sisters, however, one was a trumpet player and one was a flute player. And knowing my history as a tomboy, you can picture that I did not want that dainty little flute. So I'm like, all right, I'll try the trumpet. In sixth grade, my right arm started to fuse naturally by the arthritis, and typically people play, the bent arm right-handed trumpet player, but I couldn't, so I started playing left-handed. And my band teacher at that time was a pretty world-renowned trumpet dude for being in rural Minnesota, and I'll always remember the band room, even though it's no longer there. And that day, because he's like, "There is no such thing as left-handed trumpet players," and I was like, "Well, there is now." So I'm a Udenberg. We are stubborn, stoic, Scandinavian people, and it's like, you tell me something I can't do, I'm either gonna show you that I can, or I'm gonna do something completely different to blow your mind in a different way. So I became a left-handed trumpet player, and I had a new teacher come in eighth grade, and she was a Spitfire, and she really inspired me to become a music educator. And so she saw me as a whole person. I wasn't like this disabled student. She never made me feel guilty for having to do other things, like, hey, let's take your personal car and take you up to the band competitions, or, all these horrendous things would never happen in today's world because of liability and safety and, all the things.
Right.
But growing up in the 90s to late 90s, there's just life was different. But I'm very indebted to her. She's a great friend now. And yeah, life was hard, right? Because, I when I put that trumpet to my face, especially when I became more of a lead trumpet, when her and my high school band director really believed in me and saw the musical talent that I had and the love of it that I had, they overcome mountains to make sure that I could be in their program, and they were not going to let other teachers, other community leaders tell them that we couldn't. So, in order for me to get to the band room in high school, it was down by the boiler room. So, who would put a music room next to a boiler room that used wood chips of all things? So, lots of carcinogens, lots of allergens, you name it.
Oh, dear.
And in order for me to get down there, it was a whole flight of stairs. And so I would literally be put on a stair tracker. So kind of picture what a track chair like at the state parks look like.
Mm-hmm.
But instead of it being nice and having the chair attached, it was literally just that rubber mechanism of the track, almost looked like a military tank. And then there was just like a T of metal that my wheelchair would roll back onto, and like literally can't even figure out like a good description. I need to work on that. But like these two pins literally held my whole body weight, my wheelchair weight onto this track chair, and not tractor, sorry, stair tracker. And then an older lady, like probably one of the oldest paraprofessionals, and she would make these comments herself, and she also had carpal tunnel in both wrists, would have to lift me, my chair weight, and the stair tracker weight up, and then slowly guide it down as it would, be like, oh, we're level, and you get down a stair, and it'd just be kind of like not, kind of like when you're at a stop light and you see everybody's blinker. I don't know if you're weird like me, and it's like, oh, we match, and now we're off. That's exactly what happened with the track. It'd be like, yeah, we're on, and now we're not, and now we're really not, and now we're like completely off. Well, I ended up getting hairline fractures in my femurs. So at age 15, I was like going home one day and I'm like, look, Mom, it's a miracle. I can move my knees now. And we went to the orthopedic surgeon and he's like, you should be able to do that. We're going to put you in for an arthroscopy. So they threw me, I talk odd, sorry about that, but you'll get used to that, right? And so anyways, they threw me on the surgical table.
Tossed you into the operating room.
Right, just, no prep work, no nothing, just throw you right in. They woke me up after like an hour and I didn't know any different, right? I'm like, I can do this. This is like nothing. And they woke me up and they're like, honey, you have hairline fractures, and like the pain of moving in a hairline fracture was less than having the pain of my knees completely fused by my disease. And he's like, at age 16, we have to give you knee replacements, but we don't have the parts to do it today. So you get to stay in the hospital and wait for 3 days. Well, Amazon gets us the parts, which, there wasn't Amazon back in 1996. But
Wow.
so, yeah. And then from there, I was doing medical surgeries every 6, 9, and 12 months because once one joint would kind of crap the bed, then the opposing joint on the other side would crap the bed. And so I like never truly healed. From 1996 to 2002, I was having joint replacements pretty much nonstop.
Wow.
So yeah, so there was just a lot. So music was important. It made me feel like everybody else. It gave me a space to just thrive and shine. It also gave me a spot, especially if you know arrogant lead trumpet players. We're a different breed. And it was just a space where I could get the frustration out.
That was your out. And then you went on to have a career in that. I mean, you taught music education. So were you teaching, was it high school, middle school, college? What were you teaching for your education?
I'm a weird one and I love middle school. So beginning band was my thing, did middle school jazz band. I worked at a parochial school first thing out of college. And then I moved back up to my hometown of Two Harbors and was beginning band and then became general music teacher. And then I also worked at our charter school for also beginning band. And then some different things happened in the district. And so then I had to go up to a neighboring town called Silver Bay and be their choir teacher and general music teacher. And then near the end of my career, I was able to start an adaptive music program, which was truly the highlight of my career and just such an amazing time to support kiddos with disabilities and their families and apply, their IEPs and all the things that they need, all the supports they need, working with our speech language pathologist. And it was just amazing. Like, I wish every school could have that. And I wish every program could come alongside all of our learners and give them what they truly need to be successful and thrive in all the different settings.
What does it do for them? Like when you see kids who are struggling or kids who have disabilities who need the help and you
Mm-hmm.
give them that help and you have the accessibility for them, what does it do for them? What do you see in their eyes or what do you see?
Yeah, it was awesome because so a lot of our kiddos primarily were on the autism spectrum or were I don't like using this term because I know it's old, but I can't think of the right one, but nonverbal or different ways of expressing what they needed. And so the biggest story of it is what we would do is we would have all of our classes before it. So adaptive music would be before general music, and then I have those kiddos in general music because there's multiple music teachers. But then we could take like 3 or 4 weeks and prepare them for what those activities would be like. So maybe something that might be slightly triggering or a sensory issue after a month of getting more used to playing a game with a ball or having the parachute in the room or, just easing into some of those experiences. Then after a month or whatever time frame they needed that to be, then when they came to general music with all of their general peers, it was amazing to watch their general peers go, Jake can play the ball game with a parachute. I can play pass the pumpkin with my other friend that I've never done whatever with. But the most touching and most impactful story was we had an open house for families so they could see what we'd been doing all year. And some of the kids' favorite song was Skinnamarink Dink a Dink. You know the song. And in it, you end up singing, I love you. And so one of our kiddos who had never spoke never sang, turned around to mom and dad and grandma and sang, I love you. And they lost it because they had never heard the voice of their child tell them that they love. So the power of music, the power of getting over ourselves to meet the needs of all students, of all people. Yeah.
That's beautiful. That has got me all choked up here. That's amazing. I mean, wow. Wow. What an experience to see that, to hear that.
Yeah. And I didn't know what was going on. I'm like, why are they, like, why are they
Yeah.
crying? What's going on? And then the coolest part is that I'd see grandma for years to come because she worked at one of our local fast food drive-throughs. And so I'd be going through and then I'd get her and she'd be like, you're just, and she would just be bawling, like just giving me my McDonald's through the window. And I'm just like, I'm so sorry. Like, I'm not sorry, but I'm sorry I'm making you cry at work. And yeah, but no, we just don't know the impact of us just doing our passionate work enough. But when those stories happen, we need to share them because then that
Definitely.
inspires other people to have action. Like let's not just share stories to be inspired. It's that action step. What's the next thing? What are you doing with that inspiration?
I love it. That's amazing. So we talked about, this is an adventure podcast, and I know we've talked a lot about what you've been going through and music, and to me, it's all adventurous. You even said on your I always put on my question, what's the adventure we're going to talk about? And you said my adventure is that I'm in a wheelchair and I grew up in a wheelchair, and it is an adventure because of the things you have to go through and the things you accomplish. But we talk about real mobility. Firefly 2.5, was that
Yeah.
was that your mobility device, your wheelchair? What did that allow you to do? Tell me about it. What is it, and what kind of adventures has it allowed you to do?
Yeah, so I'll make sure that I send you lots of pictures. Unfortunately, the cover of my book, you just see my backside instead of the front. So I'll make sure that you see the front side of what the Rio looks like for
Perfect.
Firefly. But yeah, so you have to have attachment mounts on your wheelchair. So thankfully, I have a very mechanical brother-in-law that could help me with the initial setup of it. And then it just really has like clamps that go over them. So unfortunately and fortunately, I have to have a non disabled or at least less disabled than I am person that can kind of lift it over those brackets to then get it settled right so the locks will lock down. But essentially, what it does is it just takes my manual wheelchair and pop it into a wheelie. And then the front mechanical wheel is now become what my casters are. So the casters are just up floating in the air. And so it's my back two wheels and then the front wheel of the Firefly. And the batteries typically last about 12 to 15 miles. So, of course, with my Bush Fellowship money, I also got another battery because once I got a taste of freedom, it was like 12 to 15 miles is not enough because you can only go 6 out and then you have to have enough battery to come back because
Yeah.
adding the Firefly adds some extra weight. So yeah, no, not gonna push that up some hills. But no, it has been absolutely life changing. And not only in just the adventures and getting the wind in my hair and having independence, like that was another big thing, was like, hey, we're in the middle of the pandemic. I'm immunocompromised. I've never had to divulge my invisible disabilities. I had never seen me as weak or needing those supports in those different ways. So even like the thought of having people stand over me and pushing me and breathing down on me, and I mean just the world we lived in at that time and having to be more medically conscious of that than most people. But yeah, man, finding like these trails and stuff. Dude, it's like the best well-kept secret. I'm like, otherwise I'd be like, state park what? Why do I care about state parks? And I'm like, bring me to your people. I want all state parks to be accessible, like as best they can. Like we get the fact that you can't take rugged terrain and always make it whatever without industrializing it, and I don't want that. I can speak for myself, but yeah, like being up here on the Gitche Yammy Trail, being like I said, out in Itasca State Park, going on the Mesabi Range Trail. Now it's like I plan all of my summer vacations based on trails and more importantly, who will go with me. So the network of people that has opened up has been fantastic. And when I'm out on the trail, people actually look at me in the eyes. Like bikers and walkers and hikers are like some of the coolest people because they're like, hey, look at you, and like they might not always say the best known things, right? But by and large, they're just like this very welcoming people group that is like, hi, how are ya? Where it's like you go in a store and everybody's like looking down at me and like, oh, do we talk to her? Do we ignore her? Do we engage? Do we not engage? But everybody on the trail's like, hey,
Hey,
hi, ooh, oh, and it's just like
I love it.
I'm an introvert. I don't know how to deal with all these people saying hello all the time, and now I'm just like, I'm an extrovert on the trail. Hi, how are you? Great weather. Blah blah blah. So yeah, it's just cool being in other communities now, like literally communities, but also communities of different people, and yeah, just awesome.
Do you have a favorite either state park or trail or something that you've been on, or one that just has special meaning to you for whatever reason?
Yeah, that's a great question. Like I said earlier, Itasca State Park, for sure, their paved trails are in primo condition. You get to see so much different flora and fauna. There's so much other natural things up in that neck of the woods in Minnesota. Lots of hills and twists and off, different things, and also great tourist centers and visitor centers that meet your accessibility, bathroom needs, and just all the basic human needs. But also, I would say the Gitchigami Trail here on the North Shore has been the most amazing for me because all of my years driving from Two Harbors to Silver Bay, longingly looking out like, what is that about over there? How can I get on that bridge to see Lake Superior from that view? Will I ever get to? And then now knowing a lot of the leaders of the Gitchigami Trail Association and getting to know that nonprofit and learning how nonprofits come alongside Minnesota DNR to make things more accessible and to make our trail system. And it's just been a wealth of amazing relationships and building of community that now I'm like, hey, I can drive by here and I can wheel over there and I can be on that bridge. So some of the bridges I call my bridge, which I know they're not my bridge, but in my
But they're
little
your
world,
bridge.
they're my
Yeah,
bridge.
they're your bridge.
They can be your bridge too. I'll
All
share it
right,
with you, Jake. But
perfect. Thank you. Appreciate that. I've never been to Minnesota, so
dude,
maybe I need to
well,
make a trip.
gotta come. It's worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. You talked about the accessibility, and I like what you said. You said you get it that some places have rough terrain or whatever, and they can't everything cannot be accessible like that as far as paved walkways and stuff. But what are you doing anything specifically to kind of help that get the word out about, hey, how do we make this more accessible? I mean, what kind of things can people do, I guess, for that?
Yeah, so like I said, partnering with the Gitchigami Trail Association, I'm also working with the DNR in, how do we continue to do great things in Minnesota, whether it's at our state parks or with the trails. I also just recently got appointed to like their legacy trail through the whole state of Minnesota commission. So that's like new as of last week. So you heard it here first. But I try to be as engaged as I can. And then also, of course, with my board through Above and Beyond with You with our nonprofit, we're trying to figure out how do we come alongside some of these places that are already doing the work. And the biggest thing is like in disability culture, we have the saying of nothing for us without us. And so at every step of planning, of execution, of maintenance, of rehab of these trails, of these parks, of these outdoor adventures, is there a stakeholder who represents disability, culture, and community? And if there's not, then that's the problem. And if you just invite us after the fact, like before I started the nonprofit, before I started doing the talking, it was always like, Jenna, we made this great space and we want you to come and see it. And then will you do an assessment of it and tell us how great it is? And I was like, this is really awkward because what if it's not? And many times it was just
Right.
like little things, right? Like the contractor put the soap dispenser where you couldn't reach it because it's back on the mirror instead of on the side in the bathroom. Or this threshold is like a quarter of an inch too high or too big for somebody with anti-tip bars on their chair. Or the list goes on of like what it could be. And I'm like, ooh, please don't ask us to come and like kind of give you the pat on the back after the fact because you're not going to go find more funding to retrofit something that's brand new.
Right.
But if you come to us at the beginning, like even when it's in the brainstorming phase and we start talking about universal design and it's a part of the whole process, then we can be more successful. And like up in our area, we have a couple different trailhead buildings getting built and, anything from showers to bathrooms to resting spaces to congregating spaces. And it's just really important to have that aspect there the whole time, because I've also been in projects where it's like, hey, come and talk to us at the beginning. And then there's, cricket throughout the whole process. And it's like, come to the ribbon cutting ceremony. And it's like,
Wait a minute.
you forgot that conversation we had back in June of 2 years ago. And now it's too late to go and oops.
Yeah, that makes total sense because I think a lot of people probably think they're doing what's good. They think they're helping out by, doing these things in their minds. But you're right. You need to have someone representing every step of the way. Now that you're saying it to me, it makes total sense.
Yeah. So and it's hard because I'm very thankful for the Americans with Disability Act, but I think in the application of it, it's turned into checklists. Well, here's the
Right.
mandate that I must do. But like if you go and Google like height of accessible grab bars in an accessible bathroom, it'll say like 32 inches to 42 inches. Well, there's a lot of life that can be lived or not lived in 10 inches of a support.
Sure.
So while it's great that they're there, you really need the lived experience of people and people like myself who can see beyond their own disability and their own needs, that can put different hats on and be like, oh, but if I was in a power chair, this is the space I would need, or this is how I would transfer, or if I was in a scooter, or if I was using a mobility walker. Like, you need somebody that can think through, hence my new title of being an accessibility educator. Like, let's learn together. We're in partnership. We're not lone silos. I'm not the expert, you're not the expert, but together we can be the experts of this space and of these needs and try to do our best. And with that, like many times we as disabled people are being made to feel like we're just a checklist, right? I'm just a diagnosis from the medical world. I'm just this many different joint deformities to the medical world. I'm just this many ... right? But in reality, we are all fully human people that have full
Hmm.
amazing stories, that just want to get on the trail, that just want to go fishing, that just want to go and do a deer hunt, a pheasant hunt, a whatever, that just want to go put their feet in the sand of a beach.
Absolutely. Love it. Thank you for sharing that. So tell me a little bit about then your nonprofit Above and Beyond with You. What kind of things are you doing? And then tell me, I know you wrote a book too. Can you kind of tell a little bit about the book as well, if you don't mind?
Yeah. So Above and Beyond with You is a nonprofit. We're celebrating our third anniversary this April. It was kind of birthed out of my 2020 Bush Fellowship. Again, Above and Beyond stands for the fact that we can go above and beyond the ADA code. There's nothing that says you have to do this. You can go beyond and actually be inclusive and
Above and
not
beyond
treat...
the checklist, right? I mean, above.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So you can be committed to the spirit of ADA, not feeling legalistic and stuck in that checklist. And then the with you stands to a nod to my music career, because little kindergartners, 5-year-olds, can't say Udenberg, right? Some of us adults struggle with that, myself included, and it's been my name for 44 years. So the kids changed my name to Miss You. But more importantly, the word with is as bigger than any of the words, because the whole point is that we are making authentic relationships together. We're moving forward together. We're changing the world together. And so that's really the impetus and the heart of all of it. Like, we want people to share their stories. We want to promote the work and the accessibility. Like, please don't tell me something's accessible for me. Give me the pictures so I can determine if it works for me, if it's accessible for me. Because saying something's 100% accessible, I already know. Like, oh, you're ableist. You don't really know. You're not wheeling the
Yeah.
wheel. You're not walking the walk. You're not talking the talk.
Right.
You're just hoping that nobody sues you, kind of whatever. And that's just gross, right?
Checklist. Checklist.
Correct.
Yeah.
I checked you
Yeah.
off and I'm done. It's your
Yeah.
fault if you can't succeed and be safe in our space, is kind of what it feels like, which is gross and not okay.
No, exactly. And I think, I'm glad you're talking about this because as someone, I don't have a disability and I don't have anyone in my immediate family, so I don't understand it as well. So I appreciate you sharing that because it's the whole checklist analogy has really kind of opened my eyes to a little bit more because I think you're right. I think in our minds, we just kind of, I'm just checking these boxes, but you're the one living it. You're the one that knows, and we need to be with you through that. So I appreciate you sharing that. It's been eye opening for me. So thank you.
Yeah. Thanks. And then, yeah, with my book, it's Within My Spokes, and a good friend of mine helped me title it. Well, there's the back side of me, but I'll give you the front side. And so, it was kind of a nod to the whole like spokes, because once you throw the Firefly on me, I am just like an e-bike. So let's hit the ground and just do this thing. It also is a nod to the fact that I'm not stuck. I'm not confined to my chair. I live life between my spokes, but within my spokes, there's a whole nother story. It's just multifaceted. Writing it, I did it through a self-publishing school, kind of vantage point. It was tough to write for parts of it. I had a great coach who was just like, write the stories that you have mental and spiritual capacity to on that given day. Don't feel like you have to do it chronologically. And then just do it as even if it's just a therapeutic type thing, and maybe it never goes to being published. Maybe some of those chapters don't ever become a part of the actual final manuscript. And so it took me about a year to write it. I talk about my depression. I talk about more in depth about, those different areas of life. And then, so my subtitle is A Tapestry of Pain, Growth, and Freedom. And it's not just my life story, right? It's all the other lives that are interconnected to my life. And some of the people that come into our life, some of the relationships are like super vibrant, and they're beautiful, and they're heavy woven, and they're different kinds of threads, and they're, going through that tapestry throughout. Sometimes there's just really faint threads, Some relationships are just in our lives for a certain period, for a certain reason, for a certain depth of who we are. And then when you flip that tapestry over, it's a hot mess. There's knots and threads and broken things, and so that's kind of my life. And the part that I love the most about my book is that I have two good friends I talk about in there, Megan and Jamie. And it's so funny because people will be like, Megan, I read your book. It's so great. And she'll be like, I don't have a book. It's Jenna's book. And I'm like, no, Megan, it's give me your book too. I mean, you're in there for a chapter plus, but And then my good friend Jamie, who also has the same diagnosis I do and has been a manual wheelchair user for her whole life. She's kind of my disability mentor and best friend and all the things. But yeah, so now I have local people that are like, when is Jamie coming to visit again? Can she come visit us at the library? We're fangirling. We want to meet this friend. And so, that's the whole point. Like, that's the added benefit of being an author, like sharing this journey with people that have made my life greater and deeper and more meaningful, and are there to support, and the ride or dies.
Fantastic. This has been awesome for me. So I'm so glad we got to talk. Just, does good for me. I mean, uplifts me hearing your story and who you are. There's a question I always like to ask, because it's an adventure podcast, but for you, Jenna, what does adventure mean to you?
Well, you even prepped me for this question too. I was like, this is a good one. But I'm just like my students, and I didn't do my homework. No. Adventure for me is stepping out of your comfort zone. So that could be a physical thing, a mental thing, a spiritual thing, all the different ways that we show up, right? Eating different food can be an adventure. Learning a new language can be an adventure. Coming on a podcast can be an adventure,
Absolutely, right?
And I would say something that puts more wind back in your sails. Like, it just helps you feel human, because I don't know if any other parts of the animal kingdom get that adventure, except for, deer running across the road and trying not to get hit by these moving objects. But that seems more fearful than adventure. So
Yeah, right. Yeah. Just trying to survive here.
right. But fear can be a part of our adventures.
Absolutely. What does the future hold for you? Where do you want to go with this? What are you thinking moving forward?
I'm excited for my nonprofit to continue to grow. I'm excited for our message to continue to get out there and make impactful change and sustainable change. I'm excited for agencies and organizations and business and industry to start and continue to figure this. I am knowing, like, let's be honest, there's lots of upheaval and uncertainty in our world. So figuring out how do we continue this work in meaningful and authentic ways, no matter what comes at us to knock us out, what adversities, what other extra obstacles we're going to have to overcome to just make this world a better place and keep doing the work and keep fighting the fight. I feel like there's another book in me, but I'm not quite sure what that will look like. I've kind of dabbled with the fact that I would love to write a children's book because I feel like so often those stories aren't shared, and there's so many kiddos going through medical things and disabilities. And I mean, disability can be acquired at any age, any time, any reason. And we're the most diverse minority in the world because anybody can come into our community and culture at any time. So I'm excited for what new relationships lie ahead, whether that's in the nonprofit world or personal. And I'm excited that people are fascinating, right? So just having those conversations and slowing down in life to get to know each other.
100%. Couldn't agree with you more. Anna, this has been fantastic. I love what you're doing. If people want to follow along, get to know you, get your book, where can they do all that?
Yeah, so check out our website, aboveandbeyondwithyou.org. There's a link to buy my book there. My book's out on Amazon or Barnes & Noble, wherever you buy your books. You can probably find it, especially online. And you can connect with us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn, just looking for Above and Beyond with You.
Above and Beyond with You. Awesome. Love it. Jenna, thank you so much for coming on Journey with Jake.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jake. This has been fabulous.
A big thank you to Jenna Udenberg for joining me on the show. I learned so much from her, and I'm truly grateful that she's out there not only living adventurously, but also being such a strong advocate for the disability community. If you'd like to learn more about Jenna's nonprofit, Above and Beyond with You, be sure to visit her website at aboveandbeyondwithyou.org. And remember, that's the letter U at the end. You can also follow her on Instagram at Above and Beyond with You. Thanks again, Jenna, for sharing your journey with all of us. My friends, this is exactly why I love doing this show. And I'm so thankful that you're here listening and being part of the journey. If you're enjoying Journey with Jake, consider leaving a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. It would mean a lot to me. But hey, no pressure. I'm just happy you're here. Next week, I've got another awesome episode for you with Zara Atwater. Zara packed up and hit the road across Australia in her van. She's got some incredible stories and life lessons to share. You won't want to miss it. And as always, remember, it's not always about the destination, as it is about the journey. Take care, everybody.